District. Today's presentation will focus on a plan to rejuvenate the track at Paris District High School. In your package, you'll find a report that was presented to our Board of Trustees in May 2023 that outlines the rationales for the school's need for an upgraded track, as well as the board-approved fundraising targets, as well as a copy of the slideshow. So Paris is Grand Erie's third largest secondary school, currently serving approximately 900 students in its facility, which was constructed originally almost exactly 100 years ago. Although there have been major additions and renovations over time, the track has not received a significant investment in quite some time. As the school continues to grow, providing a modern recreational facility for students is a top priority for the board's capital plan, as well as our strategic plan, which is to support an equitable, inclusive, and responsive environment for each learner. The current condition of the track is rather poor. It only has 4 lanes. It helps limit the range of events which can take place. The current state of the jump pits, runways, and throwing spaces are in poor shape and need to be addressed. And the current dirt stone track is not an ideal surface for a secondary school track. A new track and turf field will provide great benefits to staff, students, and local community. We had a track rejuvenation project successfully fundraised and completed in Port Dover at the Todd Eaton Memorial Track. And although this is not the same scope, we believe this is an initiative the community can get behind. As you can see the images in your slide deck, or perhaps your familiarity with the track is not conducive to providing the level of recreational infrastructure that should be in place to support a secondary school. The track requires constant maintenance, which becomes especially challenging after rainfall. This can create uneven surfaces that have to be attended to before they can be safely used. And the current 4 lanes do not have lines, and the track does not offer the ability to hold races or to have athletes, whether student or community members, a place to train. As seen by the sketch draft developed by R&K Associates, a leader in synthetic turf and rubberized track products, there are several amenities that could be constructed in order to transform the current facility into a modernized concept illustrated today. The features that are part of the project constructed involve 6-lane synthetic track, artificial turf with dimensions and lining for football, soccer, cross-field soccer, and field hockey, long jump and triple jump, a new scoreboard, LED lighting, and spectator seating. In addition, the board included the following in its scope, which is to include a drainage system, center field logo, end zone lettering, aluminum bleachers, and football uprights, soccer goalposts, and field hockey nets. There are also some significant community benefits that I'd like to outline. There is a good, solid economic impact by hosting track and field events or competitions. This can bring visitors to the community, boosting local businesses such as restaurants, shops, hotels, and contributing to the local economy. Improved community amenities such as a new track can contribute to increased property values, making neighborhoods more attractive to potential residents and businesses. As the population of the town of Paris continues to grow, providing a centrally located recreational facility would result in use during the school day, after school, on weekends, and during extended breaks such as summer, winter, and March break. Track can also be integrated or assist with student engagement, integrating into school programs, providing students with hands-on learning experiences related to health, physical education, science, and mathematics, such as calculating distances and timing. There's also opportunities. As mentioned earlier, track and field events can be hosted, offering residents and students a location to operate tournaments, host events, and other programming such as organized sports, track and field events, and fitness programs. This can contribute to the personal growth and well-being of the youth and community members. And finally, health and wellness. New track encourages physical activity, providing a space for community members of all ages to engage walking, running, and other forms of exercise. So financing overview. In one of the slides, you'll see that the board has committed $1 million from its School Condition Improvement Fund allocation towards this project. However, based on our project estimates of $3 million, there is a gap. And how we are funded from the Ministry of Education is we receive a stapled pot of funding for all our capital investments across the board, and there is a significant backlog in the province, in the billions. Our board has approved a modest fundraising plan that will target donors large and small in the community to generate the $2 million required to proceed. One of our slides offers a visual depicting of that fundraising plan that we have put in place to attain our target. It focuses primarily on 21 large donations, supported by minor fundraising of $100,000 to obtain the $2 million. Our brochure, which is beginning to circulate in the community, is looking for big donors, which in turn are looking to support the community with large donations, with recognition and advertising in return. So how does this involve the County of Brant? As we originally started our planning, we were happy to include potential opportunity for the County of Brant to partner with Grand Erie to bring a wonderful asset to life. Due to our limited funding, we are looking for creative ways to rejuvenate our assets by forming partnerships with local government and communities. We do have two such partnerships in place at the Bison's Field at North Park Collegiate School in Brantford, as well as the Kiwanis Field at Pauline Johnson School in Brantford. A $500,000 investment from the county would open the door for the ability to discover new and exciting collaborative features to address sports and recreation, a need for both students and residents. This could be a place for community gathering. The track can serve as a central gathering place, fostering a sense of community. To mention improvement of quality of life, access to well-maintained recreational facilities, including a track, enhances the overall quality of life for residents, providing them with a space for leisure and relaxation. This also aligns with the County of Brant's strategic plan, and two items I'd like to highlight were optimizing existing assets and develop new assets to support the current and future needs of the community, and finally, to engage in productive dialogue with the Grand Erie District School Board to ensure that local schools are effectively serving students. One of the big highlights of trying to fundraise for the project is that we can always allocate up to $1 million for specific projects throughout our fundraising. However, that can take many years. If we would like to raise $3 million, we would have to earmark 3 years of $1 million. So we potentially could be looking at a 26 or 2027 project start. But by fundraising and bringing the investment now, we can start the project now, which is something we are looking to do as Paris grows. In conclusion, we are looking for this investment to provide the community and the school with a state-of-the-art field, an enhancement of potential partnerships, and to give you an overview, the partnership in Brantford at both schools works quite well, as our business is teaching and learning students. And after the school day, we have the City of Brantford that looks after the maintenance and the permit booking of the field, which then they can work with the affiliates and local sports groups to ensure that those fields are maximized. We have limited resources in the community use of schools area, although we have a couple dedicated staff. It is not the core of our business, and we do rely on our municipal partners through either our joint use agreements or through partnerships that I've mentioned at Bison's and Kiwanis Field to help kind of maximize that asset after school, on weekends, and during times when the school is not being occupied. We believe that this would be an excellent opportunity for some financial collaboration, as well as the community benefits that are outlined in your package. Mayor and councilors, this concludes my presentation this morning. I appreciate being given the time and opportunity to speak to you about our secondary school recreation infrastructure, this exciting project we have planned, and the potential for partnership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I wish they had this when I went there, is all I can say. Okay, Mr. House, we ran around that dirt track, but anyway, any questions for the delegation? Councillor Bell, then Councillor Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ralph. As I mentioned before the meeting, I was interested in why you simply don't add a tariff to your part of the property taxes which we collect on your behalf. And I know there's an answer, and I'd like you to share it.
Yeah, so how the school boards are funded in the province is purely based on a formula. It's based, not most of it is based on enrollment. Essentially, the ministry looks at boards enrollment, provides funding for that enrollment. So our budget is $356 million, and the portion that comes from the municipalities through taxes is essentially a cash transaction. So if we were to increase taxes or increase tariffs, our cash portion from the municipalities will go up, but the ministry's cash portion would go down. It would not change the overall allocation that's given to school boards. So raising tariffs would not be a successful avenue for being able to approach the fundraising in such a way.
Councillor Bell.
Follow on, if I may. So if the county raised taxes appropriately to raise $500,000 and gave it to you, would that be seen in the same light?
Through the chair, no, it would not. We would be able to earmark it specifically as additionally fundraised capital.
Okay, Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Raf. I really like the plan, but one of the things that strikes me is that even though the track is in relative disrepair, I can definitely understand that. I just am wondering, we have 6,500 homes roughly that are still draft plan approved, and the population of the county has grown, and this is our one high school. So I think there's many around the table and throughout the community who are wondering about a new high school and whether something like this would be better suited to make an even bigger project and pair it with a school in order to leverage dollars from the municipality or from the ministry. I've had an opportunity to meet with Minister Lecce twice this year, and once in addition to that with his staff. And that was one of the things that he told our group was that they're looking for those types of projects where you pair some sort of community use facility with a school, and then those kind of move up the ladder. So just wondering if that's ever been a consideration. It just seems $500,000 for just the track. If there was a way to make it a bigger project and get a school, which would then you could repurpose the existing school for elementary, all kinds of things. I'm just wondering if that's a consideration.
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, of course. We're for the ministry, when the ministry increases square footage for a building, such as a new school or an addition, we submit financial requests through something called capital priorities. So one recent partnership that we've actually successfully been funded for is in the city of Brantford. We've got a joint use school with a childcare and a recreation center that's going to have some fantastic amenities. Specifically looking at the secondary schools in Paris, currently there is nothing on our long-term accommodation plan in the next 5 years to build an additional secondary school, and that's purely based on utilization of the existing school, the cost of a new school, and available utilization in the city of Brantford. So for us to be able to submit a capital priority to the ministry to build additional space for 1,000 pupils, they would look at a 30-kilometer radius to see are there additional spots available for residents, understanding that transportation could be an annual cost. So that's why it's not on our initial 5-year plan, which is constantly updated every year, and actually a recent version was published on our website in September. However, our latest 2 submissions, which were approved by the board, were to build an addition on the cobblestone and to submit funding for a new elementary school in Paris, Ontario. And that doesn't preclude us from maybe perhaps looking at what type of land is available when that's built, and then engaging municipal partners in expanding those facilities to include potential recreation. But the type of facility that we're talking about today, looking at a track for a secondary school, as far as we know, Paris High School will be an asset that we'll continue to repair and modernize as time goes on with our limited funding. But we are looking at keeping the school, and investing in a new track. Hopefully that somehow answers your question.
You're good with that? Okay. Councillor Howes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. And I don't want to divert too much from your original agenda delegation item, but I want to make sure I understood something that you just said in response to Councillor Kyle. Is the message that I'm hearing that as this community grows, the need for additional secondary school space will be accommodated through available space in Brantford, essentially saying that students from this community will be going to high school in Brantford as this community grows?
That is currently not on what I was keen to speak about today, but as we grow into the future and beyond the 5 years, those are avenues or options that will be made available to the board should it ever need to. But our focus is on obviously looking at Paris, its utilization, the number of portables it can accommodate, and other perhaps scheduling options that can be made possible to ensure that the school has enough room for its students.
Councillor Howes?
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the information that you're sharing, even if I don't like the information that you're sharing, but hearing it is good, and obviously it highlights that increased dialogue between your organization and the county is something we need sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the delegation, and I like the project, and I'm quite familiar with the Kiwanis one there at PJ, and it's a very nice field, and that is probably something that can be used here in the town of Paris. About your ask, I didn't hear whether if we were to make it a large amount, is there terms in that? Because I've been involved with a number of organizations that have done fundraising, and it's terms. Like if we were to commit, say the 500,000, can we do that over 5 years, or that has not been mentioned in your package? So.
Through you, Chair, that would be up to the will of council and through our board of trustees in terms of entering into an agreement about how those funds are flowed, or any terms or clauses that council would like to see. For example, naming rights on a scoreboard or naming rights for the field. All that is totally open. We want to approach this with a collaborative stance, and we'd be happy to enter in any types of discussions that council sees fit.
Okay. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the delegation. In the literature that you've provided, I'm going to read a sentence, and I want you to expand on it. And then I want you to compare that to other locations in the Grand Erie Board, such as Simcoe, Port Dover, Valley Heights, McKinnon, I think it's called. The line is this. The goal is to establish the school as a community hub, and the implementation of a modern facility would help maintain Paris High School as a desired recreational location for the town. Do you understand my question?
Can you expand on that a little further?
You want Paris High School to become a recreational community hub. And you mentioned that this type of facility is in 2 locations. I'm just wondering if in Simcoe, the high school is a community hub for recreation. In Valley Heights, is it a community hub for recreation, and et cetera? And how is that comparing to or to Paris?
I guess Paris is a much larger town than some of those communities, but we are looking to have a recreational asset that the community can also benefit from. That's the short of it.
And how do you see the community accessing the school property in terms of joint use agreements, or we just use it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so not maybe it provides a little detail. So, for example, the turf at Brant or in Brantford, the city of Brantford maintains the facility, and through their booking system, community residents or community groups can book the field as they see fit outside of the school day. So after 4 o'clock, Monday to Friday, or on weekends, evenings, the field is quite busy. The track is used by community residents, and we're hoping that once the students are done with it at 4 o'clock or whenever their after school sports conclude, that community uses it, because that brings joy to us. That means our investment is having an impact positively on the community. That's our goal, is to have maybe the hub was the incorrect term, but what we're hoping that it is a place of gathering, not just during the school day, but after as well.
And just one final follow-up. In a similar vein, the gymnasiums and meeting spaces in libraries, how does that work as a community hub in terms of usage of the community of Board of Education properties?
So in all 4 of our municipalities, we do have joint use agreements with each one, allowing reciprocal use of specific assets that are listed in those agreements. So a gymnasium, for example, can be used by not only permit bookers such as residents, but can be booked specifically through the county for their own recreational programs or to offer to other sports groups. There's lots of different models that we currently work with. And again, we're also open to offering whatever will work in terms of addressing any needs that the community has with recreation by investing in this asset.
Okay. Any other Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to tell the speaker that I too am supportive of the project, and if you don't get all the funds that maybe you're looking for from the county, I still hope it goes ahead. I hope we can contribute as much as we can. I'm a Burford District High School graduate, and I can tell you that track looks a lot better than the track we had. And I'm not saying that's a good track there, but I used to run track, got to Quassa, but you're always on this dirt track, and you get to Quassa. It's actually a disadvantage, because I think I could have done a lot better Quassa if we were running on a dirt track. So I think it would really help your higher end athletes do a lot better. So I just want to throw that out there.
Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions through you to the delegation, please. I wanted to know about the lifespan of the field, and if in the budget and looking ahead for the project, whether maintenance costs and replacement costs were built into that. And in follow-up to the answers to Councillor Chambers' question, with regards to whether there were additional asks to the municipality, hearing now that the city of Brantford helps administer after-hours use of fields in their jurisdiction, please.
So in response to the first question, this budget is currently a construction budget and does not include any maintenance or any replacement costs. The turf, depending on the actual synthetic that's used, has a life of about 15 to 20 years, but that can be improved by maintaining it regularly, and that would be something currently we are looking at earmarking through our own internal maintenance allocation in terms of taking care of it. But again, should a partnership be struck, those and knowing that there could be even higher levels of use, we could absolutely add something to an agreement that could speak to what that looks like. And I'm sorry, can you clarify your second question in terms of your question for Brantford?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the chair, hearing that the city of Brantford administers the after-hours use of the field there at North Park, wondering if as part of this and envisioning the field as a community recreation space, the school board would also be looking to the county to take on a similar role here in Paris if the project goes ahead.
If that was a path that the county would like to go down to, we could support it. I believe our agreement with either agreement, there is a maintenance component where Grand Erie does pay for a level of service from the city in order to maintain those fields. And we're happy, depending on the flexibility and the financial arrangements that are in place, to explore any avenues that would bring something like this to life.
Okay, you're good with that, Councillor Garneau?
Thank you.
Mayor Bailey?
Through the chair to the delegation, is there any way that we couldn't just use your $1 million to do the track and then do the fancy naming of the center and the bleachers and things like that separately for naming rights in the future, since the track is what the kids need or what the students need now, and it would still be the piece that we would be renting out to the community? Is there no way that we could make that work quicker and then have all the other components separated for different funding asks later?
So currently, based on our board policy, we need to have the money in the bank to be able to proceed with any work. And the way that the project was initially proposed was non-phased. However, staff are bringing a report to our board in February outlining a fundraising update, as well as any required action items from the board, such as potential phasing should fundraising fall short, or any other interesting developments that have occurred since the board last heard from staff in May.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, in terms of our fundraising here, is there a timeliness component? I'm getting the feeling that we're probably going to move this towards our budget. Is that rather than approving this here and today, would that be impactful towards your budget to have to wait until roughly February to get a conclusion here?
Yes, the timing would work for us in terms of providing that update.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. You got follow-up?
Motion, if I may.
Just give me 1 second here. Any other questions? Okay, just very quickly, and it's kind of along the same lines as the mayor there. I'm just curious, what would the price difference be if it was just, fixing up the existing field that's there, not necessarily putting it to artificial turf, using the grass that's there, but doing the track? Has that been looked at as to what the price difference would be?
We have recently replaced a similar project at Cayuga Secondary School, and I believe the dollar range back, I think it's around 2020. So CPI for construction costs has skyrocketed, but I believe it was around the $750,000 range to replace what they had with a rubberized track, but no synthetic turf and none of the other amenities that were provided. So again, that's something that staff would bring back in a report to the board and saying, short of the $3 million or short of escalating construction costs, there is a second option. Would that work for our board? And perhaps that's the direction they would give to staff. But initially, the scope was to have a dream design and see what could be constructed and fundraised.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it'd be fantastic for sure. Okay, seeing no more questions, Councillor Oakley, you had a motion?
Through the chair, I move that we receive the presentations and information and refer the budget request from Grand District School Board to our 2024 budget process as a decision package.
Seconder for that, Councillor Coleman. Everybody understands the motion? Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to 4.2, Samantha Lawson. Come on up to the mic. Name and address for the clerk, and again, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Samantha Lawson, and I'm the CAO of the Grand River Conservation Authority. I'm here today to talk to you about an MOU agreement between GRCA and the county regarding programs and services that are offered by the GRCA on behalf of the municipality. A few years ago, the provincial government initiated a number of changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, as well as introducing a number of new regulations. And part of that was for all conservation authorities to rejig their budget framework. So traditionally, you've probably seen us come before you requesting for the general levy. And that was to support some of the programs and services that the GRCA has around floodplain management. Some of our other programs included the Rural Water Quality Program, environmental education. So those were all part of the general levy. Now the government has issued a couple regulations. One in particular is the mandatory programs and services regulation, which actually defines what we can levy municipalities for. So that includes our flood forecasting and warning program. So basically any of the natural hazard management that the Conservation Authority does is part of a Category 1 or a mandatory program and service. Other programs include source water protection, the role that the conservation authorities play in that, as well as land management. So the Conservation Authority owns about 50,000 acres across the watershed, and so it is a mandatory program from a risk and liability perspective. The second category is Category 2, which is the MOU that's before you today, and that's for programs and services that the GRCA administers on behalf of the municipalities. So that really focuses in on the water quality aspects of our programs and services. So that would be the Rural Water Quality Program, the Wastewater Optimization Program, participation in some of your EAs and master planning from a natural heritage perspective. In terms of relating it back to the previous general levy, Category 1 and Category 2 equal basically the same cost as general levy. So when you're seeing the new budget, which I believe we circulated back, I think it was, the draft was approved by the board at the end of October, you'll see that we now reference Category 1, 2, and 3. So again, Category 1 and 2 equals what the general levy was in the previous format. Category 3 programs and services for the GRCA are programs and services that generate self-generating revenue and are funded through that. So for example, it would include our parks programs, it includes our environmental education, some stewardship programs, but not the Rural Water Quality Program. So in terms of some of the requirements, as well as we have to, for the Category 2, get into MOUs with all of the participating municipalities. So within the Grand River watershed, we have 22 participating municipalities, and those are the municipalities that fund the municipal levy of the budget. In terms of GRCA's budget, if you're looking at sort of a rough breakdown, about 50% of our budget is supported through our self-generated revenue. So again, that's the parks, our revenue that we generate from permits and planning, our cottage lot program that we have, so some of the revenue we generate from leasing out our properties. Roughly just over a third is municipal funding. So currently, the 2024 budget, the municipal portion is about 13 million, roughly. And that's split amongst the 22 participating municipalities. Of that 13 million, Category 2 would be about $1 million. So from the perspective of the programs that we deliver, the water quality component is a a tiny but very important part of the role that we play in managing the watershed. Category 3 again falls into the self-generated, and then the remaining part of the budget is funded through provincial funding and grants, and there's a portion that the foundation as well participates in. So in terms of the agreement that you see before you today, we are anticipating that all 22 participating municipalities are going to be signing on. We have been talking and working through this for the last 2 years with our municipal partners. So there has been a lot of back and forth that have gone into the creation of these documents. Right now, we have about 60% of the municipalities that have signed on, and we're anticipating that the remainder will come towards the end of November and the beginning of December. These agreements do have to be in place by the end of 2023 and will form part of the 2024 budget. And that's probably it. I just also wanted to thank your staff. They've been wonderful to work through this process. They've been very patient with us as we've tried to develop these. It is sort of a significant change for us at the Conservation Authority in terms of the way that we're approaching our programs and services and our budget. And just to add as well, there are no new programs and services that are being added to. So at the end of the day, really in terms of from a financial perspective, you'll just see the increase as it relates to what the board approved increase to the overall budget is. So Chair, through that, if there's anything, any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for the delegation? Councillor Miller?
I just want to point out, yeah, the GRCA does a nice job of generating a lot of their own revenues, but he didn't mention hydroelectric.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's an important
That's right.
one. So.
That is.
And I think we can still generate more, but that's another discussion.
Any other questions? Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair to the delegation, just as a point of clarification, this is a different request than the funding agreement request that is our communication that we have on our agenda as well, in regards to Apps Mill.
Through you, Chair, yes,
Okay.
it's a different request.
Councillor Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, can you use self-generated funds to fund Category 3 projects?
Through you, Chair, yes. Most of our Category 3 programs and services either are self-sustaining or they supplement other Category 3 programs.
Councillor Chambers?
Can you use surpluses or reserves to fund Category 3 programs?
Through you, Chair, so probably about 3 years ago, the GRCA pulled together a transition reserve, and that was to allocate funds to support the transition into the new budget framework. So some of the programs that were shifting to a self-generated model because we weren't allowed to apply municipal funding to them. The intention was for that reserve to help with that transition, in particular the environmental education program.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How would committee like to go with this delegation? Councillor Miller?
I'll move to receive, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Oakley. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, moving on to 4.3, Bernia Wheaton and Kim Earls from SCORE. Once again, if you can state your names and 10 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning.
Is that? There we go.
Thank you. You think I would know that by now. Good morning, Mayor Bailey, Chairman, and Council and staff. My name is Bernia Martin now, which has been updated recently. No worries. And I'm here with our Executive Director, Kim Earls, from SCORE, South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation. As you may recall, an organization that began in 2010. And today in 2023, looking at your 2024 budget, our ask today is for a membership fee increase of $5,000 from $25,000 to $30,000. The fee of $25,000 has been in place since 2010 and has not increased. And as you know, cost of living and inflation, a 2010 dollar and a 2023, 2024 dollar are very different. And so that $25,000 today actually is really only $15,000. So it's very difficult to move an organization forward when you're really working with less and less and less each year. Kim is going to give you much more detail about the organization, where we've been, where we're going, and what we hope to achieve in 2024. And I will pass the presentation over to Kim.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us here today. Is there, how do I make the slide? Sorry. Thank you. I'm so sorry. That's okay. I'll make it bigger for you. Sorry about that. That's okay. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. So, as Chair Martin mentioned, thank you. Thank you. There you go. As Chair Martin mentioned, we've been in existence since 2010, and we're created through the 5 counties of Norfolk, Oxford, Middlesex, Elgin, and of course Brant. And our focus has been on sharing resources and information across the 5-county region with a long-term strategic planning outlook. In our current strategic plan, our priorities are infrastructure required to support economic development, human capital, and sector development with a focus on agriculture. And just a little bit about the structure. SCORE, again, through our partner counties, 2 representatives are appointed to each of from each of the partner counties to the board of directors. And through that board of directors, which is the governing structure, we have access to not only SCORE staff, which is myself and some part-time staff, but also 2 staff appointees to our resource advisory committee, as well as a number of ministries and other staff supports. So again, we kind of look at our SCORE size as a right size. You're 1 in 5. We feel like we've had some significant success in coming together to have a larger voice to support our common outcomes and strategic priorities, and yet it's not so large that it feels diluted or hard to come to some consensus. This slide is just offers a return on investment on some of our activities over the past 2-year time frame. And again, you can see that there's been significant supports across the region within just that last 2 years. And then if you wanted to look back further, we did have the Sand Plains Community Development Fund, which was a $15 million funding pocket that supported the region. Other large-scale pockets that I know have been accessed here in Brant County were SWOTF and other larger supports for the business community. So again, for a return on investment for the $25,000 or $30,000 membership, it's been significant and pretty consistent over the past 13 years. Some things that I want to bring to your attention today. Our focus over the past couple of years has been heavily across the in our infrastructure portfolio. We focus heavily on transportation. 2 of those things are rail and intercommunity transit. So here in Brant, you are fully funded and have a very unique system in that you are on demand, and that has been a really great member support across the 9 other SCT members. So you can see from that map the sort of area that we cover, and you may note that yes, indeed, it is beyond that 5-county region. And so the SCT, or Southwest Community Transit Network, for the counties that are part of SCORE, they do not pay anything. For county or partners that are not part of the SCORE membership, they pay a small fee to be part of the Southwest Community Transit Network. This last 1.5 years, we undertook a region-wide project to look at what intercommunity transit might look like from a regional scope if it were not developed as individual transit systems that were evolved at the municipal level and then tried to fit together about what might it look like if we had designed it from a regional level. And that project was recently completed with recommendations. The other project that I feel is very significant to Brant, so the Cayuga Rail Project, which runs roughly from St. Thomas to Norfolk County through Oxford County. And while that is not in Brant County, it does service a wide agricultural, sorry, I'm losing my voice, a wide agricultural community beyond that immediate geography of the rail line. So, for instance, especially for grain farmers in and around Brant County, they would rely on probably the ethanol plant in Elmer, to take some of their grain products to, and that particular facility is very reliant on the rail. As we look for investments that have been in the region, both in St. Thomas area, you hear about the EV plants, but as well investments that are happening here in the county of Brant, as well as beyond our borders, that rail and that supply line piece of infrastructure, again, we envision as being a very important piece of our rural infrastructure going forward. SCOR's also been fairly active in advocacy, supporting these strategic priorities. This last year, we had 16 ministerial meetings, as well as some follow-up meetings with staff, and we've had some great success in those. And again, our focus is with our advocacy on things related to economic development, such as I know here specifically in County of Brant, the issue with leave to construct, which is a outdated threshold that requires a further timeline for infrastructure, has created some issues and potentially has maybe caused some issues with attracting some investment in the region. And so that actually came to us through County of Brant staff, and we've been pursuing that over the past couple years with some great success. And again, just a slide outlining how we believe that we align well with the county's strategy. Again, our focus at SCOR is economic development, workforce, agriculture, and infrastructure. And those are certainly things, as the County of Brant, you're facing high growth, perhaps one of the highest area of growths across the region. Those infrastructure pieces, maintaining our agricultural opportunities and planning ahead for workforce, working with post-secondary institutions to ensure that we have appropriate training, are all very important. This is just a list of some of the programs that we've participated actively on over the past year, and some of those that I'm not sure I have on here. I did have the opportunity to work with the committee for the Salute to Brant Business. I've been very active in working with staff on the agricultural related initiatives here in Brant. And again, I just want to leave you with some parting thoughts on the benefit of membership here at SCOR has been, we've had some really great successes, and this year happens to be a year we have some very obvious and tangible things that we can point to that we've done and we've accomplished. But the wider value is cumulative over time, and having that organization that is in place and has successes and history and reputation and relationship that we can build on. And I think that's really where our overall success over the past decade plus has been. And with that, I will end. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the delegation? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Kim, and Kim, I hopefully prepared you to answer the question. When I look at the ROI for membership slide that you had on there, it's difficult to find the County of Brant on that list. So if I'm a resident and I'm looking at this meeting, I'm saying, what's in it for Brant? can you be a bit more expansive on that, please?
Sure. So some of those initiatives, so
Kim, can I just get you to speak a little closer to the mic?
absolutely, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
So some of the larger initiatives, for instance, the St. Plains Community Development Fund, and it's I'm not sure that I've even put that on there, but it was again a $15 initiative or a $15 million initiative that helped transition the area's agricultural sector. As well as the SWOTA funding. So SWOTA funding, I believe the Ford plant here in the county of Brant, as well as other larger businesses have had opportunity to connect through those. And I think also the inter-community transit has been something that Brant has benefited from. It's being part of that wider membership in terms of learning, understanding, being able to be tweak our routes, understanding where we can connect with neighboring communities, where our travel patterns are, and where residents need to go. So I think that those, as well as the ones that I had mentioned earlier about the rail and the agricultural community, I think have really benefited the county of Brant in particular.
Through you,
Councillor Bell.
Chair. Yeah, thank you, Kim. I have to say I am not as positive about the results, particularly on transit. I'm concerned that we've been talking about it in the 5 years I've been on council, and I don't think anybody has really made we collectively have not made a big change to how people in the county of Brant can move around in the region. You know, how can one of my constituents get from Paris to Woodstock or Paris to Tilsonburg? I'd love to see that that's something that SCORE could enable, and I don't see it at the moment. And I would, you know, I'd be more than willing to pay more than $30,000 a year if we could leverage that to make that happen. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
So that is something that I would be happy to, and probably should come back to go into some detail about our SCT regional project that we just undertook, because that is something that addresses, to look at where our growth in our communities are, where people will likely be traveling, where to leverage those opportunities, and to really look at our transportation with that regional lens. So, and again, County of Brant is really in a pivotal spot, sort of connecting much of the rest of the SCORE region to the GTHA and beyond. So that is something we are looking on, and I do agree that sometimes it seems extremely slow. Unfortunately, as we launched many of our systems, that was the onset of the pandemic, and I had an interesting comment from the organization Dillon Consulting that undertook the project. They made a bit of a generalization, but said that it typically, in even a larger urban center, will take 3 to 4 years for resident behavioral changes to see an impact on transit routing. And so for our systems that had started maybe largely in 2020, 2021, some in 2019, in the middle of a pandemic, we really only have 1 year of good data behind us that shows where we're going. And within the last year, so the 2022, we have, between our 9 county systems, increase in usage from, I think the lowest was at a 53% increase, and then we had other users that, system usage, that we're seeing as high as 138% increase. So I think as those behavioral changes start to happen, you'll see more. And again, with anything, it's, you know, the more we use it, the more we have time to invest into it. Sorry, I'm going to cut myself.
No, it's all good. I think I'm just going to jump in here for 1 second. I think I can speak for all of committee here to say we would be absolutely open for you to come back and discuss the transit at a deeper level, for sure. Councillor Chambers.
Could I, Mr. Chairman, just add something to Kim? And Kim answered the question very, very well. But I just wanted to make a further comment. The whole inter-community transit project or initiative was a result of MTO and SCORE collaboration. MTO came to SCORE and suggested perhaps SCORE could take the lead in this particular adventure, and SCORE stepped up and did that. So in terms of dollars and cents, that's not showing up as a figure, but it's showing up as the whole project was a result of MTO and SCORE collaborating to begin a project, and it's in its infancy. And I could probably say without SCORE, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
Perfect. Councilor Miller.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to. I share Councillor Bell's frustration with the transit, but I think you have to put it in context. Just to get Brant Transit just took over 5 years, and it's a lot more controlled within one municipality. From the time the Brantford Roundtable on Poverty started discussing it to the time we had it, it was just over 5 years. So when you're talking across different jurisdictions, I appreciate that. Having said that, I think Kim, you guys understand the importance of it to us. We really would like to see it take off, so we support you fully on that. And I just point out to the Sand Plains Community Development, 15 million. We're not allowed to say where it went because that was all on camera. But I was on that committee, and it was distributed, I think, fairly equally across the 5 regions, 5 municipalities. And it's neat because sometimes you see money given out, and the business goes out of belly up a year later. They close down. But I still see a lot of those businesses open. So that was a really good program. It was a really good program. And I don't say that about a lot of government programs, but that one was one. So unfortunately, we can't show where it went in Brant. But I would say for sure we're getting our money's worth, and I think we will continue to.
Any other questions? Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask Bernie a question. As members around this table know, I've been on SCORE for quite some time, and you tend to get stale in your thinking. Bernie has been with SCORE 1 year, and and as chair, I'm just wondering if she could perhaps use her vision. Where do you see SCORE going from here, from a new perspective and a new member, and what's the future SCORE?
I think, and thank you through the chair for the question. I think that I look at SCORE and our future opportunity through 2 lenses. One, the provincial mandate to increase housing. And what does that mean to our individual communities? So you've had the question about transit. Transit fuels development and facilitates development. And so as Paris continues to grow, and I'm elected in Oxford County, as Woodstock continues to grow, transit leads to smoother development, and development relies on transit in order to be sustainable. So that housing growth, I think, is a key influence in so much of what we do as an economic development organization. The second big influence is the upcoming investment in St. Thomas with the Volkswagen EV plant, and what that will mean to our 5-county region. The work that we need to do now and over the next 3 years to ensure that our infrastructure is in place, that Cayuga rail line is in place, that intercommunity transit is sustainable and able to get workers, because workers will go from Paris to St. Thomas for those jobs. That is the reality of what we need to prepare ourselves for. The infrastructure on Highway 3, education, we've just talked about education and what that means to our communities. The steps that we need to take now to ensure that we are in place for all of that growth, I think is, I won't speak on behalf of all board members, but that is a huge part of where we need to be focusing our attention to ensure that we're ready for what's about to come over the next 3 to 5 years. Does that answer your question?
Thank you for that. Mayor Bailey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, excuse me, to Kim. First of all, Kim, thank you for all the hard work you do with SCORE and making us look very good when we go to see our delegations at conferences. You do an amazing job. Just to Kim, I guess you know that we've been meeting SCORE has been meeting with some concerns. I've spoken to Councillor Chambers about it in the last couple of weeks, and there seems to be some doubling of services, or at least thoughts going into conventions. And I know the power of SCORE has always been the contribution of the 5 municipalities, and I think we've gotten great value out of the relationships of the 3 municipalities. I mean, without SCORE, I wouldn't know people like Ed up in Bayham. I mean, why would you have to know Ed, I guess? But it's been a wonderful relationship, and I guess you know that there's rumblings now. So of the 5 groups that make up SCORE, I know that three of them are considering leaving SCORE. There's going to be a letter in this council's weekly package on Friday. What happens, Kim, when we lose the numbers and we lose the clout that we had with so many people that we represented, especially when the 3 that might be leaving are the 3 biggest ones? What do we do then? I know there's a penalty. You have to sort of give a year's notice if you want to leave the organization. But what if 3 want to leave or 4 want to leave at once? Kim, what happens to SCORE? I know what happens to SCORE, but how does that work, and how quickly would it happen?
Through the chair. So I think I guess maybe I'll just frame things a little bit. I think every year, which is the job of our board and our member councils, there's always discussion on value that SCORE offers. And so I think in the 13 years that I've been at SCORE, not one year have I not heard a council or a board member say, we're considering this because that's what you have to do as part of your job. I would say that this year is probably no different than any other years in that counties may be considering withdrawing. I think we do a great job of providing value for the relatively modest investment at the municipal level. What would happen if if we did have a number of years where one of our member municipalities was not a participant, the board of the day still chose to include that county in the visual geography as if it was a member, and subsequently they came back in the fold. I think what that really does, if one member county were to leave, it really restricts the leverage that you have in order to take a hold of opportunities and garner further funds for projects. If 2 counties were to remove themselves from the membership, it would be I think it would be a case scenario of winding down the membership and just the loss of all of the decade plus work that you've put forward to that and the advantages that you've had. But I hope that answers your question.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. I think if you remember back to the last board meeting, Kim, I'm the one that I reduced the 35,000 down to 30 because I was concerned that it was a money issue for some of the counties. And we have been meeting, the 5 of us have been meeting in the last couple of weeks, quite often actually. And the people that I was trying to save from financial burden are the 2 that seem like they want to stay the most. So it's not a money thing. From my speaking to people, it's the fact that we've all gone our own ways and things are changing. So I think that's why I wanted to thank you publicly, Kim, because I don't know what's going to happen at the next board meeting, and I'm very concerned. And it sounds like this might be a different year than you've had before, and I just hope it's because of the wardens. I mean, if SCORE was to fold or to close down, the support would automatically go to the Ontario wardens, which we all still have a lot of faith in, and we still are glad that we are represented there. I'm just sort of saying what's out there right now, Kim. I don't want anyone to be blindsided, and I want my council to be aware that these talks are happening in the background. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you for all your good work, great work, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Oh,
I just wonder if I could elaborate a little bit on Mayor Bailey's question and some of the expressions that I saw around the table. If, as Kim identified, if 2 or 3 members were to drop out, what the next fiscal year would look like, what 2024 would look like, there are a couple of options. And I'm not saying that this is what we want to be putting in front of you. I'm just saying that strategically, I have ran a number of scenarios through my head. My first priority is to take care of Kim. I think one scenario would be to wrap some of our existing programs from SCORE into WOWC. Western Ontario Wardens is an option, and that Kim could be integrated into that work plan. I think that and a second option would be, as we wind down the organization, the membership fee for 2024, if we can't integrate into WOWC, would end up being a part of a severance package to ensure that Kim could land on her feet somewhere, and any unspent monies would be returned to the membership. I don't know which direction, which options will present themselves. Ideally, all 5 members will stay and we continue our work and we move forward. But there are contingencies that are being considered to ensure the initiatives that are underway continue and continue in a robust way, and that our staff are taken care of. So I hope that might elaborate a little bit on your original question, Mayor Bailey, on what 2024 could like if we face some of those withdrawals.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Oakley.
Through the chair, just one comment, if I may. I just in response to this, I just want to say from my own standpoint that the 30,000, 35 both seem reasonable, even from the standpoint of what I've seen the work done at the various conferences we've been to. Just that if you were to put those dollars towards a consultant to do that type of advocacy towards the provincial government would seem more than worth it. So I certainly hope that this potential shutdown of SCORE does not occur, because I think this is a worthwhile investment.
Thank you. Okay, so no more questions. How does the delegation want to proceed with this? Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, receive his information and approve the additional funding, or additional membership fee, rather.
Second to that? Councillor Chambers?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last, did he say approve or?
Yes.
Normally we
receive and approve the additional 5,000.
Refer it to budget, but if that's what he wants to do, I'll second the motion, but it might be best in terms of context with the budget.
So receive, refer to budget.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Chambers. Questions on that? Councillor Miller?
Maybe it was an error, maybe it wasn't, but I like this first motion because I would support it, because I think it would send a message anyways to the other municipalities.
Questions to the motion? So the motion is to receive and move to budget. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so now, as stated earlier, we are going to go directly to 8.1, staff report, which is RPT 0444-23, the municipal MOU letter of agreement.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Shafo, the environmental planner. Samantha Lawson did an excellent job this morning about presenting the different programs and services offered by GRCA. So really I look at this as the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act as formalizing what we've always done. GRSA offers phenomenal programs. The one I'm most familiar with are in the rural areas in terms of the tree planting, the rural qualities, enhancing our streams, enhancing the environment. I do field calls, and it's great to refer people to GRCA and the experts in this area. The Category 2 programs also offer monitoring of our groundwater or surface water, which is very important, and landscape level studies, the wastewater optimization in terms of reducing impacts. So basically, GRCA has worked with 22 municipalities, not an easy feat to come up with a standardized MOU. The approximate cost is estimated in 2024 at about $30,000 for the municipality. It's a recommendation of staff that we do enter into the MOU and continue this long-standing partnership with GRCA. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from Michelle? Councillor Miller?
Just comment slash question. These early days, the category 1, 2, and 3, they've all just been recently split up. But as Samantha pointed out, there's no new programs. These are all existing programs, and my understanding is the way the funding works, CVA, that's how we're doing it. So, like, everything's basically the same, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And like I say, these early days going forward, maybe next year something changes, and I think if anything changes, I would look to you, Michelle, if anybody on staff, to be able to take these on or whatnot. Is that fair?
Yes, and through the chair, and as one of the deliverables, we get a yearly update, so we could bring that forward to council on what the progress is, what's happening in Brant, certainly any changes to the budget. Based on the MOU, it's just a nominal increase each year, like any other program, to cover the costs.
Any other questions? Seeing none, there is a recommendation. Get a mover. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller. Questions on the recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, now we're going to move to 11.1, which is part of the addendum, and that's a funding agreement request. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor Oakley, seconded by Councillor Bell. Questions on that report? Councillor Miller?
Sorry, what report are you referring to, Mr. Chair?
It's 11.1 in the addendum, the funding agreement for the outdoor environmental education program for Apps Mill. Councillor Miller?
Okay, this is the motion, and if I get a second, I'll speak to it. But I'd ask that we move that to budget, and then I can speak to it.
Councillor Oakley? Okay, Councillor Miller?
Yeah, we won't be dealing with budget for a couple months. Councillor Chambers, I think he asked a very good question of Samantha earlier, and I think he's right as far as the funding goes. At the end of the day, there's category 1, category 2, category 3, category 3. We do have a nice surplus because the GRC has done nice work, as you know, from our former CAOs. They do a lot of self-generated revenue. A lot of that falls into the category 3. Can you use category 3 to help fund it? Yes, you can. You can use that surplus. And I believe that's how Long Point does it. I would like to have those discussions at the board level, at the GRCA. Looking to my colleague there, Brian, and see if we can't make that happen. But in the meantime, the GRCA can still go ahead with what they want to do with their outdoor facilities. And they will make an exception for Apps Mill until the city and the county can decide. But like I say, at the same time, I'd still like to have this discussion at the board level. So this just buys me and Brian a bit of time.
Anybody else? Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, I'll second the motion if that be, and just a couple comments. First of all, with regard to the category 3, I think we need clarification whether upkeeping facilities such as buildings and conservation authorities is not category 3. That's part and parcel of looking after your properties, which is levy. So the ongoing reverberations and capital costs associated with the building at Apps Mill may not be category 3, but I'd like that clarified. Members of council should know that Long Point Conservation Authority also has an outdoor education program, which is category 3, and that is being funded through surpluses, self-generated funds, and we're lucky we have an endowment it's an agreement where interest on a former property sale funds are attributed to and have to be toward the education program. That all being said, the last thing I want to say is just a clarification. We're looking, the category 3 is the program, the outdoor education program. It's not going to close Apps Mill Conservation Authority area, which I think people are thinking and panicking about. The Conservation Authority, the conservation area of Apps Mill, again, is not going to close. It's the programming of the outdoor education program, if I understand it, is what is being considered. So just some clarifications, and hopefully the reps on the authority can have some further discussions with the other board members and the staff with regard to funding the outdoor education program.
If committees indulge me here, Samantha, are you able to answer the question from Councillor Chambers there in regards to the upkeep in that? If you could, come on up to the mic real quick. Thank you. We'll just get a response to that.
Through you, Chair. So as part of the requirements under the legislation, the cost for the facilities goes to the use. So it would not be a municipal or the mandatory program. It would be part of the costs for the operation of the Category 3 program and service.
Councillor Chambers, that's good. Yep. That's where you were going,
and
right?
Not to be argumentative or anything, but you know better than I do, but if you're not having the program out of the education programming building, yep, it could be used to store picnic tables, and that would be part and parcel of the upkeep of the grounds. If the education program ceases, then you still have to look after the building, and that is not a category 3, that is levy.
So if I can
That's
just
correct.
clarify too, so we're not ceasing the program. The recommendation is because there's an overall deficit for the operation of the program itself, around 300,000. Staff reviewed and are making the recommendation that we move the program into the conservation areas. At this point in time, we haven't decided what's going to happen to the facilities, but you're correct. Depending on what the use is of the property is where the costs for operating it are allocated to.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Did you want me to answer the second question? Or?
Sure. Go ahead.
So through you, Chair, I think the question was about closing the conservation areas, and you're correct. That's not, again, what the recommendation is before the board. It's looking at transitioning the environmental education into a more sustainable business model, and by that we are recommending to move it into the park system.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got a motion on the table that's seconded. Any further questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so that brings us back to number 5, adoption of the previous minutes. Can I get a mover? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Howes. Any questions on those? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we will move on. Consent items to be approved. We've got a few of them here. So 7.1 is RPT 0484-23, the facilities roof project. Kathy, I don't know if you want to speak to this or just answer questions. Okay, any questions on this report? First of all, can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller, question.
Yeah, yeah, roofs are things you don't play with. We understand that because if you got leaks, you got bigger problems down the road. But I did want to ask through you, Mr. Chair, to Kathy, the Scotland one. Did we not redo the roof when we redid the whole building? I thought that was part of it. And then here we are looking at redoing some more of it.
Sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair. I was not involved with that. I don't believe it was done at that time. It was more the interior renovations that it was focused on, is my belief.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Councillor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Kathy. The report indicates that all of the large recreation facilities were reviewed and that these are the highest priority. Does this mean that there'll be more roof repairs coming forward? They just perhaps weren't as pressing as the ones listed here?
Kathy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. There are some other priorities that you will see in the long-range capital forecast.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.1.2 RPT 0477-23, provision of utility locate services through dedicated county staff. Mark, did you want to speak to it? No? Any questions on that report? Mr. Walton, you wanted to speak to it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to committee. This is a project that staff have been working on for 2 to 3 years. And it's one of those things that in, a growing municipality like ours, as you look at operations, you see ways that you can streamline things. And we've, as outlined in the report, we've looked at 2 or 3 options to do this. And, we finally come to the point where this is something we need to do. And I think we need to get the momentum and make the next step towards doing this and get on with it. And I think we'll see the other efficiencies as outlined in the report with the staff that have been doing it over time, and then not having to add a staff as fast in some of those other growing things like water and wastewater and roads and the like. So I'm credit staff on doing a good job. It's taken us maybe a little longer to get to this than we would have liked, but I think we're in a good place on this now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mover to get it on the floor, Councillor Oakley, Councillor Bell. Any other questions on this report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving on to 7.1.3 RPT-498-23, the paramedic services budget. Cindy, did you want to speak to it? Just answer questions. Somebody put it on the floor. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Howes. Any questions on this report? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. I guess the budget for paramedic services is almost a direct function of the population. So I guess we can expect that as population grows, we will need to grow our paramedics budget. Do we have, it doesn't have to be today, but is there a historical chart which shows how paramedics budget has grown as population has grown? We should not be surprised as we go forward when we get more requests for additional funding.
Cindy?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Certainly I think you're correct, Councillor Bell, that as the population grows, the budget will increase. Have we done a side-by-side comparison of that directly? No. The other thing that will impact the budget and increases to calls is the change in demographics. So as our population overall has aged, we'll also see a trend in an increasing number of calls as well, which will impact the budget.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow that up, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Cindy. I guess then we can expect an increase well above the rate of inflation on an annual basis, which reflects that demographic change.
Through the chair, yes, I would expect that.
Any other questions on this report? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Cindy. Could you maybe just refresh our memory on how this works? Because this still has to go through the city, and have they looked at it? Have they talked about it? Have they approved it, or do we know where they are at with this?
Yeah, through the chair, the city has considered the budget. Staff attended, I think, their finance committee meeting, and they did support and approve the budget that was recommended by Paramedic Services Committee. So if County Council approves the budget this month, we have until December 1st to notify the city of that.
Councilor Miller?
Yeah, it should be pointed out. It's a stand pat budget. I mean, the ambulances we're bringing on were approved previously, and you always bring them on mid-year just to get the cost down a bit. So it's a stand pat budget, and then it says it in the report, but 2024, we won't see anything for facilities, but the paramedic services has been, I think, underinvesting in facilities for quite some time. So that will be addressed. So we might see even a bigger increase 2 years time. So just get ready for that.
Any other questions? Councilor Chambers?
Just through you perhaps to Sydney or the representative. In the Hamilton Spectator a few weeks ago, there was an article that kind of singled Brantford Paramedic Services out a little bit in that they were saying, and I don't know the exact term, code whatever it is, whatever the number, about having to use other ambulances and other paramedic services is not looked upon as being good in Brantford. I wonder if you can comment on that in terms of, is there anything in the budget that addresses that, or is that just a function of the way things are and we can't really do too much about it?
Cindy?
Yeah, through the chair, we actually, it's code zeros that you're referring to, Councillor Chambers, where there is no ambulance available from our own service, and which we're drawing upon other services to respond to calls. We have actually seen an overall fairly significant decrease in that this year after there was a 24-hour ambulance added into this year's budget. So that really has made a significant improvement. In the 2024 budget, there are no additional frontline services or staff, as we don't feel that with this year's improvement that would be required. The other component to those code zeros is offload delays at the Brantford General. We did receive a grant from the province to increase resourcing for the dedicated offload nurse program. So we are working with the hospital to find staffing for that, which is also a challenge. But if we're able to secure that, that should also have a positive impact on those code zeros as well.
Councilor Chambers, you good with that? Okay. Councilor Oakley?
Through the chair to staff, just as a follow-up to that, would we potentially expect this year to have more code zeros and more of the offload delay issues, given the fact that BGH is undergoing an emergency room renovation, and that I believe is impacting services there?
Cindy?
Through the chair, it could have an impact related to just challenges in staffing again and being able to move people in and out of the hospital in a timely manner. Anytime you do get the ambulances stuck there, they're not out and able to respond to the community. So there could be some impact related to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That was unanimous. Moving on to 7.1.4, RPT-482-23, fees and charges. Somebody put it on the floor. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle. Heather, did you want to speak to it or just questions? Any questions on the report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moves us on to section 7, consent items to be received. Does anybody want any of the items pulled? Seeing none, looking for a mover for all of them. Councillor Oakley, Mayor Bailey. Any questions on any of them? Councillor Miller?
Just on the gravel pit, I've been following that portfolio for a while, so I was glad to see that we were part of that. It helps a wee bit. I won't say a lot, but a wee bit. And just if maybe Christine could keep us up to date through maybe a Friday memo, because we still have to clear that one last hurdle. But I think as long as we're update on that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. No other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Those are carried. Moves us on to staff reports. 8.1 we've already looked after. 8.2 council committee and calendar. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes. Councillor McAlpine. Any questions on that report? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be the disturber on this one. First of all, January, our council meeting on the 23rd of January is just when we get back from Roma. I wonder if it could be appropriate if it was on the 30th. And I do have problems taking the whole month of August off. So I'm worried about how many planning applications come forward. We do take them all early in July, and we don't see them again to early in September, and things like that, and I just wonder, I'm not so sure. I've never did support taking a month off, and I guess I can't support it again, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Councillor Chambers?
Just, I don't disagree with Councillor Coleman. I don't mind meeting if there's a need to meet. And I think a council meeting in August may be an appropriate thing because there's a lot of things going on. And, that being said, the other question that I have is with regard to the Administrative and Operations Committee meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Is that the consensus that everybody is agreeing to? Because personally, I don't like it, and I have to take time off to do that. And if there are other people that feel the same way, I would like it reverted back to evening, but I am willing to go with the consensus.
Very quickly on that, I think we had some long discussions on that when it was moved to daytime, and the vote went through to move it to daytime. So I think if we're going to revisit that, that's one thing, but the consensus was that it will move today. I think it's a little easier on staff if it's through the day. I as well, it's a little difficult for me, but it is what it is. The majority went for that, so that's kind of where that landed. Follow up?
Yeah, I don't see a great rush to move away from the morning meeting, so I'll live with it.
Okay. Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, I also do have some concern with the August break, just again because of the planning reasons, stuff like that. I'd be curious if we wanted to have staff look at that at some point.
Well, we've had 3 people discuss it now. Does somebody want to put a motion to look at revisiting August? Councillor Coleman? Councillor Oakley? So just to have staff revisit August for a potential mid-month meeting or some sort of meeting, whether it be planning, whether it be planning council. Make sense? Any questions on that? Councillor Bell?
Not so much a question, Mr. Chair, but more of a comment. Our colleagues in the city with whom we do business on a number of joint committees take July off. So I think maybe if we choose not to take August off, I think we might want to consult with the city and just make sure we don't misalign ourselves.
Any other questions, comments? I guess my only comment on that is if we look at this last year with taking August off, must admit there's pros and cons to it. It was nice to kind of have the month off, but in the same sense, if we look at our meetings prior to and post, it seemed that as we put ourselves into September, it really there was quite a few meetings there in a row. So we'll leave it to staff. We'll have a revisit that and see what they come back with on that. So I guess there, Councillor Coleman?
Can I also throw in that, can we have staff look at moving the council meeting in January to the 30th?
Yes, thank you for that. Heather?
Just, if we're gonna move the January meeting, we should probably just make a motion to move the January meeting, because we're not gonna have a lot of time to revisit it. It'd be better if we just did it today if we wanna do the 30th.
Councillor Coleman, second to that motion. Okay, so let's back this up. First of all, let's do I'm sorry? No. So we're gonna recommend to staff to revisit the report on August, right? I guess it's, we've got a mover and a seconder for that. All in favor of that? Opposed? That is carried. Now motion to move the January meeting. Seconder for that, Councillor Bell. Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to 8.3, RPT-0462, annual review of.
Councillor Pierce, sorry.
Yep.
You need a motion to approve the report as amended.
Like I was saying, a motion to approve the report as amended. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle, thank you for that, keeping me straight there. Okay, it's moved and seconded, the motion as amended, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we're going to move on to 8.3. Annual review of council appointments. Mover? Councillor Kyle, Councillor Miller, any questions on that report? Councillor Chambers and Councillor Bell.
This may require amendment. I'm currently a member of the Social Services Committee, which meets on the first Wednesday morning of the month. And I've unfortunately had to miss the last two, and I may have to miss the next one. I'm thinking that it might be a good idea if I stepped down from that committee and allowed someone else to move on to the committee that have more options available to them in the morning. So I would like to stand down from social services if someone would move up in my place.
Councillor Garneau, is that your hand up to offer to move up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd express an interest in serving on the committee. For committee's benefit, I did previously declare a conflict with regards to the social services portfolio. When our work for the city of Brantford on housing went out for tender this past spring, we were not the successful proponent, and we don't see ourselves doing this type of work again in the near future. So that conflict has been resolved. The timing does also work for my schedule.
Okay, can I get a mover to Councillor Chambers to appoint Councillor Garneau?
And to quote the great Shakespearean play in Hamlet, the guard on the rampart, for this relief, much thanks.
Seconder to that, Councillor Kyle, sorry. Okay, it's moved and seconded that Councillor Chambers come off of social services with thanks, and Councillor Garneau move on to social services. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now, Councillor Chambers?
Commencing at the next meeting.
Well, now you're pushing it.
Yeah.
Councillor Garneau, you're good for the next meeting? Okay, that's affirmative there. Okay, so now approval of the report as amended. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Bell. Yes, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's more of a comment. And let me relate a conversation I had with a member of the City Council. Those of us that serve on John Noble Home or on the Social Services Committee or on the Brant County Health Unit recognise that we don't always get attendees from the city. They seem to not turn up in the numbers that they should turn up in. So in a side conversation with a member of that city council, they said they're having trouble getting people to actually do these jobs. Which then begged the question of me, why do we need so many people on these joint committees? Why do we need 6 people on a social services committee that typically, and the mayor will recognise this, meet for 11 minutes? I'm exaggerating. we don't meet for very long, very often. Likewise, do we need as many people on the John Noble Home Committee of Management? We do need 4 people from each of the city and the county. Do we need 6 people on the Shared Services Committee? I offer this as a way of alleviating some of the burden on some of the people, both on this council and on the city council. I would request that perhaps the CAO has a conversation with their opposite number and see whether there's ground for shifting the numbers. I don't think the Shared Services Committee or the Social Services Committee would work any differently or worse, should I say, if we only had half the number of people on it. In fact, I suspect it might work better, but that's my humble opinion.
Okay, just my quick comment to that. If we're having troubles getting numbers at 6, would that not make things worse if there's only 3?
With respect, I think if you're only looking to get 3 people to attend rather than 6, I think you'll probably find it easier.
Councillor Miller?
Okay, how do I don't want to be critical, but I have to agree with Councillor Bell. The attendance is sometimes difficult. Mr. Chair, I concur with you. If the numbers are lower, you still got the same problem. And we looked at the paramedic service committee. We couldn't even get enough to talk about the budget at the one meeting. So it's really frustrating. If the CAO was having discussions, maybe they could bring that up, because I make a huge effort to make every meeting. I really do, and I would like to see other members of committees that I'm on do the same thing. So, like I said, I don't want to criticize, but I do get frustrated.
Councillor Chambers?
Just a comment. I guess the noble thing to do if you can't make the committee is to get off the committee and let somebody else go on in your place. And that,
I think we've seen that. Yes,
we had an example of that recently. Is that committee, joint city, that's all part of the cost sharing agreement, and there's been a variety of there used to be 3 and 2 and 4 and 4 and 6 and 6, and it's all over the map. The city has to be consulted with as well. Just keep in mind that if you start tinkering with the number of people on the committees, you're tinkering with the cost sharing agreements, and I'm not sure that you want to really do that too much.
Any other questions, conversations on that, Councillor Oakley?
Just through the chair, just in specific reference to the new Joint Services Committee, I believe philosophically there was a specific reason for having 6 of each, which is the mayor and a councillor from each ward. So in that committee specifically, I would have to be opposed. The other committees, I can see the logic behind having reduced numbers.
Councillor Coleman? Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to what Councillor Bell said about one of the committees is John Noble Home, I thought there was a rule or something in there in place that if you missed a couple of meetings or 2 meetings in a row, you were turfed. I remember Councillor Goward had that done on somebody a few years ago. So I think it needs to be looked at again. And if it needs a total of 6 members, I don't give a rat's if there come 5 come from the county and 1 comes from the city, as long as you got 6 people that are interested. If you need 8 people and they all come from the county, doesn't matter. I'm sorry. And Councillor Miller is absolutely right. People don't show up at these committee meetings. We have the same problem at GRC. You get a big board and you only got 18 members. Where's the other 8? I know everybody can't make every meeting.
Councillor Chambers.
Just again, another comment, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the Joint City County Services Review Committee. That's something that I think this council needs to have a discussion about at the appropriate time. The problem with having members of council on a committee joint with another 6 from another committee, is that if the committee wants to meet perhaps prior to and maybe outside of the regular meeting, perhaps to discuss something that perhaps they wish to take forward to the committee, then you're having a situation where you have a quorum of council. And according to the legislation, you're not supposed to have meetings with quorums of council meeting. The committee, the joint committee, we're all appointed to the same committee. We're not a committee appointed to a committee. We're individuals appointed to the larger committee. So there's an issue there that if we ever want to meet to talk about something, then we're in contravention of the Municipal Act, having 6 members of the council talking about an issue that's not constituted as a council meeting. And we can't meet as a committee of, because we're not so there's an issue there.
Right.
The other thing we need to talk about is how that committee is reported to and how and where and when. The way it's working now is the committee meets, the report of the committee goes to the city for approval, and county council gets a copy of the minutes. County council doesn't approve the committee report because it's run under the auspices of the city. So in essence, it's kind of like a city committee reporting to city council. And again, that's not the way it should be, because county council, we need to have a more say than to approve the minutes of the committee. We need to be approving the recommendation, et cetera. So there's an issue there. There's also an issue with regard of the timing and location of the meetings. It's always being held at the City Hall. They are public meetings, I believe. They're at least, I think, online. And that puts a disadvantage of county residents who may want to. There's a whole bunch of issues that need to be sorted out with the city-county liaison or city-county services review committee that we as a council need to address before it gets too far out of the gate. So I'm just putting that out there for a suggestion.
Okay. Allison?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to address your last point, we have agreed that we will be alternating locations in terms of those meetings. So the second meeting will be held at County Grant Council. The caveat to that being is that it will be clerked by the city, but we will alternate locations.
Okay. So we've got a couple things here with this report. We've made some changes on it. It's evident that we need to have some discussions potentially at the CAO level to CAO in regards to attendance. Once that conversation is had, numbers may change. That will be, we'll understand that conversation once it's been had and bring that information back to us. I think the CAO has heard everything we've said around the horseshoe here, that there are some concerns. We'll go Councillor Kyle for the last post here.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you quickly, I just thought it's also worth mentioning that perhaps taking a look at some of the committees as far as their not only attendance but effectiveness, and perhaps they either don't need to meet as regularly or could be moved to more of an ad hoc type model as opposed to a committee that meets regularly. One that comes to mind, perhaps tourism. It could maybe benefit from a little bit of a look at how effective that works as it is in its current state. Another one that I know I've had some discussions with staff recently would be the community safety and well-being, and whether that needs to continue as a regular committee or again moving to more of an ad hoc or as needed type committee, which could help to alleviate some burden on some people that are on some of those committees.
Okay, just 1 second. Just to that point, I know, and Councilor Miller will attest to that, on paramedics, we had that discussion as well as to the timing of the meetings, but Allison, and then Councillor Coleman, then Councillor Kyle, or I'm sorry, Councillor Oakley.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair, and I'll speak solely to the advisory committees that are within our sole control, and we have had discussions both at the committee and the staff level of the time burden and the actual cost benefit of some of them, and I agree. Ad hoc may be an answer. So our new public consultation specialist is actually going to be bringing forward a report, hopefully in Q1, Q2, with an analysis of all of those and maybe some tweaks that we can make to make them more efficient and respectful of everyone's time.
Okay. Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one committee I think that can be eliminated, and that is the Gainesville Community Center fundraising, and we've reached our goal, so I think there's no need to have it right at the moment. So if Mayor Bailey agrees.
We got the nod and the thumbs up. Perfect. Councillor Oakley, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Through the chair, I was just going to make a formal amendment in regards to assessing the committees, but given that's already happening, it's moot point.
Okay. Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, I'm in favor of everything discussed, but what I would request that at our next council meeting, an in-camera item to Shared Services Committee mandate.
Okay, I think we can do that. All right, so that was some, only because you're the mayor, you're gonna get the last word here, Mr. That's it.
Mr. Chair, I didn't hear a word that Robert Chambers said, so I'm just wanting to know what Robert said. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm on vacation and I'm stress-free.
I wasn't talking about you, Mr. Mayor. What I said was I requested an.
Oh, it's your mic.
Can you hear me now? No, I can't hear you.
Yep, I can hear you.
What I suggested was an in-camera session at our next council meeting to talk about the City County Shared Services Committee mandate.
Okay, so we've had a couple changes to this report. There was a couple amendments. There was some direction to staff. So we've got a mover and a seconder to the report as amended. Everybody's good with that? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Phew. Okay, 8.4 RPT-0473-23, 3 and 7 Yo Street for the Heritage Evaluation and Recommendation. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Howes. Did you want to speak to it, Brandon? Questions on the report? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, it didn't say in the report, and I know it's on the historical heritage portion of it, but how many units are we looking at for this property? Because looking at the photos, it looks like quite a few.
Through the chair, so that information will be determined at the Planning Act application stage. Right now, we're just dealing with the heritage and kind of design component to provide some direction to the developer for the exterior.
Okay, further to that, because we did discuss it at our last planning meeting, would this be considered an infill project?
It would, through the chair, it would be.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Brandon. I think the recommendation is that we kind of hold the cultural heritage value of number 3 and number 7 Yeo Street. I'll get it right in the end. Yeo Street, I know. But actually number 7 doesn't look very culturally heritage at all. I mean, it looks like it's just a red brick building that you can find many of them in and around the town. So I can agree with you on number 3, but number 7, I can't see the point.
Respond to that? Or?
I can, yes, through the chair. So the Heritage Committee did move that number 7 in particular. They didn't see any significance in it, similar to what you're saying. We've just grouped the properties together with the report just for simplicity's sake.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair to staff. I wanted you to comment on the directions here that you have in the report on a podium at the street level, additional stories are set back, so on and so forth. My understanding from the recommendation is that these would go forward as requirements for the build or just suggestions to give the developer. I.e., are we making a plan? Are we essentially making a planning decision here, or and restricting the developer and what they can go forward with, or are these just suggestions and we'll see what they do with them?
Through the chair, so they are just suggestions. We don't have any control really over kind of aesthetic in that regard. But what the Heritage Committee is doing is saying that these things are things that are reflective of the heritage nature in the area. So they would be kind of prioritized or would like to see that. There will be iterative kind of back and forth with the applicant for the design. There'll be other components that play into it, obviously parking, number of units, the floodplain issues. So there will likely be changes to that, but this is just the direction that we're putting forward to see as preferred.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Okay, we have a recommendation that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.5 RPT-0442-23, the southerly portion of Cleaver Road, removal of winter seasonal maintenance. Did you want to speak to it, Greg? Okay, any questions on that report? Actually, could I get a mover first? Councillor Kyle, Councillor Coleman, questions? You're gonna let him off the hook? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.6 RPT-0460-23, purchase vehicles outfitted for winter operations. Can I get a mover? Councillor Oakley. Councillor Kyle. Questions on that report? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That is also carried. 8.7 Winter Sidewalk Maintenance Program. Mover? Councillor Howes. Seconder? Councillor Kyle. Questions? Councillor Miller.
Just, I was looking at the map actually of Burford, and I don't know if it exists for other places in the county, but the current way we got it, I know it's a bit of a legacy, but when going forward, would we be looking at, say, seniors facilities? We want to get the sidewalk done out there, schools, downtown cores. Would we be looking at, say, maybe establishing a set of criteria and putting those things in there?
Greg?
Yes, through the chair. That's what we're giving a glimpse of what we have currently, but in the report we say we're going to go back and look at this more in depth, and hopefully we'll have a more information for the 2024-25 winter season. We want to look at this holistically. We want to see what's being done around the province. We want to have a better idea of the condition of our sidewalks. A lot of our sidewalks will not take our machine widths. So what I'd like to do is come back and say, okay, this is what's being done across the province. This is what we can do now. This is what we can do in the future, and whether we stage it in or what upgrades need to be done to the infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Craig. I think the people at the Cedar View Church will be happy, so thank you for that. I had a couple of comments though. Lions Park in Paris. When we built Laurel Street, or we redesigned and reconstructed Laurel Street, it was with the intention that that was a walkway down for children from the south end of town towards the high school. And I see that Laurel Street itself gets cleared, or the sidewalks gets cleared, but the section through the park and over the bridge and into Mechanic Street doesn't get shown on your map as being cleared. And I think we do need to clear it. If we're going to make it the primary route for children to get down to school, then we need to clear that route. Now, I guess that conflicts with Parks and Recreation because it's not a road, but it is a part of the system that I think we need to assume responsibility for. And I know I've had that conversation with Kathy before, and I hope that between the two groups, you can see your way to get that done.
Great.
Through the chair, that is going to be done this year. We have worked it out with Megan Hunter. The roads department will be doing the machine work within the park, and I believe park staff will be clearing the shovel route over the bridge to connect where that switchback. So that is being added.
So staying in Lions Park, if I may, Mr. Chair. I think it was when COVID was at its worst, we made an effort to clear the sidewalk on the pathway that runs through Lions Park to the second bridge. And I find that that's very helpful when people are limited in where they can walk. If we provide a safe walking space for them, I think it would be appreciated by the community. And I would ask that that is considered as we go forward. Again, it falls between roads and the park. But my final comment is about downtown. If you look at your maps, you clear the sidewalks in downtown St. George. You don't clear the sidewalks in downtown Paris. And what's the rationale for that?
Greg?
Yes, through the chair. The reason for that is our machines don't fit. Historically, the store owners have cleared in front of their facilities, but when the reconstruction is done downtown, we are talking with the infrastructure group about the size of our equipment to accommodate future clearing. So that is already in our plans. And any of the sidewalks that we are upgrading now, we're building that into the plans so that we actually not only have AODA compliant sidewalks, that we can, as demographics shift in the community, get older, get busier, whatever that demographic needs, that we could possibly expand the winter program for sidewalk clearing. So that is being built into our programs every day.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Okay, just one that I'll add, and I appreciate the statement you made there that you're going to review things again for 2025, because with the new sidewalks that are now down on Race coming around Hillside, I've had a few people ask me, okay, so who's going to clear them? Are we going to get them cleared as well? So now I can go back and say everything's going to be reviewed. I can't guarantee it, but it will be reviewed to potentially just continue down ball and loop it around. So appreciate that. No further questions? All those in favor of the report? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 8.8 RPT-0439-23 Governors Road West and Cleaver Road Road Lowering Agreement and Agreement Extension Request. Councillor Coleman moves. Seconder. Councillor Chambers. Questions on that report? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mark. This is a year extension. If it continues on being extended year by year, there may be a conflict with the proposed Boralex battery energy storage system, who they want to run high voltage lines through that space that you're now talking about, along Cleaver Road and then across Highway 2 and all the way down till it reaches power line. Has that been considered?
Adam?
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Chair. As I understand, Boralex is in discussion with Lafarge about this matter, so I don't anticipate any significant issues. If anything, as the road is realigned, the construction of the power lines will be considered in that, and I think we're still considering the fact that if that's the last section to be completed, we're still talking 2 to 3 years down the road anyways. So I think there's a little bit of leeway, and I think Lafarge and Boralex will be more than able to work out the specifics of that.
Okay. Councillor Miller?
We're on 8.8, correct? Just
8.8, yep.
Just checking that. Yeah, before Mark's time, I know when Lafarge was looking at this whole extension and all that for this road, they were they had the residents very involved, and I'm just wondering if the residents are being kept up to date with these extensions and all that.
Mark?
Through the chair. Yes, Lafarge actually went out and spoke to all the residents along
along the road before they even made the request for the extension to the county. So they're all completely aware, and any feedback I've gotten is they're quite happy for the road to remain as is.
Yeah, I've attended a couple of the meetings, and I know the residents. I don't know. Maybe there's one there that wanted the road reopened, but yeah, the majority supported never opening it again. So yeah, I can see them being happy. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.9 RPT-0343-23, the connection fee billing for water wastewater servicing projects on Cedar Street, Laurel Street, and Curtis Ave North. You wish to speak to it or just answer questions? Mr. Walton, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Before you do
committee.
that, can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor Oakley and Mayor Bailey, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to committee. So this looks like a bit of an innocuous report, but really we're setting ourselves up for a whole bunch of future projects here. And I just want council to know a few things here. You know, we're introducing some things that haven't been traditionally done in the county brand. Mandatory connections on these projects. We're telling the owners that we're going to finance them if you can't pay them immediately, which I think is very important. And we're sort of setting up a communication process here. We've communicated with the people on these projects as the services were being put in. Many of them have actually already developed properties in here. We've actually built them probably in similar amounts to what we're going to build them out now, but we didn't have the projects finalized at the time. So it's really just setting up a communications protocol where we talk to people during construction. Now that we've got finalized costs on these, we're going to be going out and telling them this is what your bill is going to be. We can have discussions with them on that if there's misunderstandings during that period of time. Then we'll bring back the final billing bylaw to council, which will lay out all those things, mandatory connection, the payment terms, and what each property is to be built. It also is excellent because it sets us up for when there's future severances or changes to properties, that we know what we need to build those properties as well. So I think it's a really good system that we're working on here, and I hope that committee and council will agree with that. And pleased to answer any questions.
Questions? Councillor Miller.
Through to Rob. Rob, I think he said in the report they have till 2028 to, if they don't hook up, they have to be hooked up by that date. Is that a municipal requirement? Is that a provincial directive, or who has authority over that?
Rob?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Miller. The Municipal Act allows us to do that. So it's through the bylaw that we passed that we gain the authorization to force the properties to connect. And I think in this, we're not saying you have to connect right now. We're giving them a period of time. It's really interesting because as we did Curtis Ave North, we had people out talking to all those businesses out there, and many of them are very interested in this. But to date, I'm not sure. We're just working maybe on the first connection. So it does take them time, but I think we get this leverage there and we say, okay, you got the 5 years, let's get working on it, let's get it done. It's all over the sustainability of the whole system, right? You know, when we get talking in 2024 about setting the 2025 to 2028 water and wastewater rates, you know, having all these people in the urban areas on the systems is an important thing towards the sustainability of them.
Makes sense. Any other questions? Seeing none. All in favor of the report? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 8.10 RPT-0506-23, expansion of downtown Paris residential parking permit system. Adam, you wish to speak to it?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, this report provides an option and some direction to staff to investigate the implementation of a permitting system for those who live in the downtown core. It's intended to try and provide a little bit more encouragement for any sort of residential growth that may occur in the downtown core, kind of rationalizes and modernizes the current permit system that we have, and with the direction to look at on-street residential parking permits, it just seemed like a natural fit. So this is presented for committee's consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Mover to get it on the floor. Councillor Howes. Councillor Oakley. Question, Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Adam. I'm happy to see this, Adam. we have a unique combination of types of residential dwellings in downtown Paris. And, you know, some are $1 million condos, and some would actually qualify as affordable housing because they are that much below market value rent. And what I'm most interested in is and I understand that we're going to have a chance to see more details of this in the future, but it is your vision for this a program that's going to be equally achievable for everyone. You don't have to have $1 million condo to be able to afford to negotiate a parking space. And then I guess the other question is the kind of the premise around this, that peak times when we need parking spaces for shoppers and visitors to town is typically not the peak time when tenants or homeowners downtown Paris need a place to park their car for the night. Can you speak a little bit more about both of those things?
Yeah, certainly through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor House. Yeah, certainly it will be a program looking at, I guess you could say an equitable amount. I mean, an individual living in $1 million condo or a storefront on Mechanic Street will pay the same price. We don't anticipate it to being a significant cost. I think in initial discussions we looked at maybe $200 a year. As far as we understand too, there isn't a significant uptake of the existing permit system, so we don't see necessarily this solves current use, but perhaps provides an option in the future. And as I outlined in the report, there are limited options for sort of containing parking on private sources in the downtown core on the private areas. And we've discussed in further, in previous reports, we're very constrained in the amount of land we have. So we have to look at it very holistically and look at sort of more communal parking sources rather than trying to shoehorn private parking, as sort of was experienced with previous developments, where private parking was the alternative that removes that sort of public option or communal option for parking. And obviously, as we progress through various things like climate change action plans, using limited land resources for private parking isn't necessarily the best use of the available land we have down here. Looking also at sort of balancing economic resiliency and vibrancy in the downtown core. So I think I've answered your question, or if I'm missed the second part, please remind me.
Quick follow-up through the chair, if that's okay. Thank you. That all sounds good, and the dollar figure they're throwing around, I think sounds, if it's like $20 a month on somebody's rent to be able to have a dedicated, not a spot. And that's my follow-up question is.
Sorry, yeah, I do recall your second question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so typically, through you, Mr. Chair, yes, typically, if you're a resident and you have a job outside the downtown core, your space will become vacant. That's why we don't want to dedicate spots specifically as we do currently at the back end of Municipal Lot 2. This would see a little bit more turnover. We did do sort of a parking census in 2021, and the peak times are during the days, and it's very limited usage in the evenings, and certainly during more of the fall, winter, early spring months. So there is capacity to have this residential parking permit system, and then look at future parking options, how we meet the capacity of the sort of daytime and afternoon peaks as we go forward.
Okay, so my follow-up then through the chair, if that's all right, is and again, that all sounds good. So in your vision for this, if I have an apartment downtown and I'm paying whatever per year to have my license plate
in the system,
I don't have a dedicated spot.
No.
Correct? I'm going to be able to park somewhere downtown and not get a ticket overnight. That sounds great. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair to Adam. So in having this conversation in regards to the climate action plan, looking at the permit system downtown, does this also dovetail into, or is it part of the conversation with paid parking in general in our downtown area. Is that part of the conversation right now?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, there have been floating discussions about paid parking in downtown Paris. I think as a staff, and I'm sure as a council, we're highly cognizant that the redevelopment of Grand River Street North will cause significant issues, and we continue to work on mitigation plans. So I think paid parking is certainly not something we're considering until significantly after the reconstruction project's done, to avoid the extra, potential issues that come from the reconstruction project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, that brings us to section 9, resolutions. World Council on City Data. Mayor Bailey, do you wish to speak to it?
I could read it if you like. It's in front of you, whatever you prefer.
Okay. We have a proposed resolution by Mayor Bailey. Do you have a seconder?
I don't. Seeking a seconder.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Miller.
Just speaking to the last sentence there, regarding additional data streams available in advance of 2025 budget deliberations. Do we see this costing a lot or adding significantly to staff time?
Allison?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There'll be an incremental cost, certainly. They're not standalone. So in other words, if we're doing one data stream right now, if we had 3, it wouldn't be triple the cost, but there would be an incremental increase. And the reason for that is there's some overlap in some of the data points within each of the streams. The 2 additional ones are resilient cities and smart cities. I think what staff would like is some time throughout 2024 when we do have proper resourcing to evaluate the stream that we already have, and make sure that we're getting value out of that, and then also assess the additional ones and see if we feel there's value in adding them for 2025, and that would include the costing.
Councillor Miller, you good with that?
Yeah, well, as good as I'm going to be, I guess, for today, because I'm not 100% clear on where we're going with this. But
any other questions? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9.2, notice of motion. Councillor Kyle.
Yeah, I don't need to speak to it today. I'm planning to bring this forward at a council meeting later this month. I just wanted to make sure that everyone had it in advance. It's a kind of a big, heavy topic, so wanted everyone to have as much time with it as possible, and happy to answer questions if people have questions leading up to the council meeting, and look forward to the debate at that time.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, that will move us on to section 10. Committee and minutes report. 10.1, Brant Heritage. Can I get a mover? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Howes. Questions on that report? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Did we lose Councillor Garneau? I think we did. Yep. Okay. 10.2, Brant Connects Committee minutes. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10.3, Tourism Advisory Committee. Can I get a Councillor Oakley, Councillor Bell? Questions? Councillor Bell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 6.3, Rest Acres Road landscaping. I've talked about this before. It's beatification. I sent a picture to General Manager Walton the other day of the roundabouts at Falkland, and if anybody's been past them, they're actually very neat, very attractive, a whole lot more attractive than the roundabouts on Rest Acres Road. So I did ask the question, is it possible to do a little bit more work to bring them up at least to the same standard as the Falkland roundabouts? And General Manager Walton, he's still there, he encouraged me guidance insofar as he said it might be possible. Maybe he could speak a little more.
Mr. Walton?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell. Yeah, I did respond to Councillor Bell's request there and did lay out, as was laid out in the recent Friday file about this, that we do have deficiencies with our existing contract that we will work through till the end of this year when the contract is done, and that in 2024 that we'll work with Megan Hunter and her group as to what other improvements that we'll make with these with the roundabouts that exist.
Sounds fairly positive, Councillor Bell.
Just one final comment. I mean, it is a primary entryway into Paris, known as the prettiest little town in, whether it's Ontario or Canada or wherever. It isn't pretty at the moment, and I think we're missing an opportunity. I think we should seize that opportunity in 2024. Thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
Just to comment, I look at it from a different perspective. I look at it coming out of Paris into the beautiful rural parts of Brant County, and couldn't agree more with Councillor Bell that something needs to be done to enhance the appearance as you move out of Paris into the beautiful rural parts of Brant County.
We thank you for that, Councillor Chambers. Okay. All right. So it's been moved and seconded. 10.4, all in favor, or sorry, 10.3, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10.4, Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Oakley, seconder. Councillor Miller, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, that moves us to section 11, which is communications. We've already done that. We moved that up. Other business, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a complaint from a resident about leaves on the sidewalk, and there was a real accumulation of leaves on the sidewalk, and I took it up with bylaw because my assumption was it was the responsibility of each resident to clear his sidewalk, as it would be with snow or ice, and apparently it's not. Now, move the story forward a little further. This week, the County of Brant website, Facebook page, had an article about it is the responsibility of residents to clear leaves from their sidewalks, and referenced County of Brant bylaws. So I took it up with Greg Bergeron, and he said, actually, the Facebook posting isn't 100% accurate, and that indeed there is no bylaw that demands or commits residents to actually clear the leaves. Now, from a purely practical perspective, Greg's question or response to me was, if people blow leaves onto the pathway, that's one thing, then you complain and they can do something about it. If the leaves naturally fall onto the pathway, that's a different matter. So I did ask him the question, is there a difference between naturally falling leaves and naturally falling snow? I didn't get an answer. There must be an answer there somewhere. But that said, for anybody that walks regularly around Paris or any other part of the county on sidewalks, if there are lots of leaves there and it is wet, it is quite slippery, quite dangerous. It's as dangerous to me, and it would be as dangerous to anybody of my age and capacity. I think it's as dangerous as when you're walking on snow or ice. So I would like staff, if that was possible, for them to just review whether we shouldn't amend our bylaws to include a requirement for residents to clear their leaves away to avoid slippery surfaces. I just wonder who would pick up the bill if one of our residents slipped on this particular sidewalk. County says it's not my problem, resident says it's not his problem. Whose problem is it? It would be the resident, the individual that fell and slipped and broke an ankle or broke or whatever. So if staff could just move that one forward, I think it's logical to have the clearance of leaves as part of our bylaw for the making sure that we have safe ways for people to walk on sidewalks. Thank you.
Good. Take that away. Okay. Okay, anybody else with anything for other business? Counselor Miller?
Well, I was going to speak to what Councillor Bell said.
Corrections style, yeah.
Maybe in the bylaw we could look at other things because it's not just sidewalks. I notice there's a few residents that like to rake the leaves onto the roadway for whatever reason. I guess it's off their property. But at the same time, when you got a pile of leaves and a car's coming around the corner and they're not expecting it, I don't think that's the safest thing either. Maybe that could be looked at in conjunction with the sidewalk and leaves.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, just a further comment on this. Less about the direction itself and more over our use of staff direction. I would be interested at some point hearing about when something crosses over from being staff direction to needing a motion and notice of motion, as right now we're directing staff to work and review a bylaw, which normally we would have a notice of motion for and a motion for, and we're doing this without a vote, and all that seems to be in a bit of a gray area to me on where we're choosing to have a discussion, having a vote, versus we're just telling staff to do something and they go do it without any consultation of the rest of the council. Not that I disagree with Councillor Bell here, but just procedurally this seems odd, and we've done quite a bit of it.
So direction to staff for a little education? Okay. I think we can probably work something out like that. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else with anything other business? Okay. I do have one. I don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Walton, but are you able to give a quick update on the hydro poles on Rest Acres Road? The movement of the hydro pole. You or Mark or somebody or
through the chair to the committee. Yeah, Mark can help me out if I stumble on this, but I drove through there yesterday, and the construction crews are out there working on the line as it's to be moved. So it's actually happening as we speak. The pole in question hasn't moved yet because the lines have to be off it before it can be taken out of there. But the poles are behind it, and my guess is that they're out there stringing the wires today, maybe even. They're working on it. So, do you have any update as to when it's actually happening, Mark?
Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but I got another call on last night, and I agree. There's activity, and I think that's what's getting the buzz with a lot of folks. Mark?
The chair. We did receive an email yesterday from Hydro One. Their planned outage for Sunday did not occur. That was when everything was supposed to happen. They're having challenges with organizing themselves and Grand Bridge Power to make everything happen. We've asked them for an update and the fact that we need this work done so we can finish the roundabout, not pay any more delay costs, and everything else along those lines. So we're working on trying to get an answer. We're hoping it's sooner than later, but I didn't drive through it. If Rob drove through this morning, then there was some more work that needs to be done, but we don't have a date on the actual shutdown, and it's a very large shutdown that needs to happen to switch the lines over.
Okay.
So when we do have an update, we will share it with you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just a quick part B to that, if I could. Is there any way we can put the traffic on the west side of the road so we don't have to? Because on the east side of the road where it goes around and it's got the big dip there right by that pole, I'm just curious. The other side's done. Like on the west side, it's done. It's paved. Is there any way to move the traffic to the other side so there's no potential of going over that bump?
That has to deal with the contractor's traffic staging and then the work that they need to do to actually finish. So that just follows along with where they're going to put traffic based on what they need to do to finish.
Okay.
My guess, since they have to do work on the east side, at some point they're going to push traffic to the west, but I don't know exactly right now, and I'll find out some more information for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so that's all I have for other business. Nobody else has other business. I don't see anything in camera. Unless anybody wants to stick around. Next meeting is December the 5th. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Coleman. Have a great day, all.